Lie up nearer, brother, nearer, for my limbs are growing cold.
In 1859, there was a guy by the name of Joe Barnett, and he wrote an immigrant account of coming out on this trail, and probably about 5 miles from where we are, so 5 miles from back on the trail, he wrote about a song that they sang around the campfire that night, and it's called The Dying Californian. I'm Clint Gilchrist, and I'm director of the Museum of the Mountain Man, and we're out here on South Piney Canyon, the South Piney Canyon part of the Lander Trail, Immigrant Trail. And I want to talk a little bit about the entertainment that the immigrants had. I don't want to give an overall broad. There was a lot of entertainment. All the music and culture that these people brought from the east came out here west with them. So anything back there would have been common out here. But there's a few things that are really unique to the trail, I think, and they're mentioned by immigrants that were right on this trail, right where we're at right now, that I wanted to bring out and just talk a little bit about to kind of give you a feel for these people's mindset. And it's a song that you got to realize these people, these immigrants, are 3 months into probably a 6-month trip. And the rest of the trip is worse than the first part of the trip. And so they've got a lot of hard labor ahead of them to get to where they want to go, whether they're going to California or whether they're going to Oregon. And so I'm sure melancholy set in every once in a while, and that's what this Dying Californian's about. The background of the story is there was a guy by the name of Brown Owen, excuse me. In 1849, with the gold rush, he had decided to get to California gold rush by going boat around the tip of South America and coming up into San Francisco. And towards the end of that trip, he got really sick on the boat, and he was so sick that he wanted to write a letter to his wife. He had left his wife and 2 kids to come find his riches here so they could have a great life. And he asked a friend on the boat to write a letter to his wife, and that letter was taken back to New England, and it was picked up, and a poem was made out of it, and the poem was published in 1850. And just to give you a feel for some of the stanzas in it, it says, he's talking about his family, saying, "Tell them I never reached the heaven where I sought the precious dust, but I gained a port called heaven where the gold never rusts." So this is a very melancholy song. He knows that he's dying. When the poem was published, somebody else picked it up, and by 1852 had put music to it, and it became an incredibly popular song, especially on the immigrant trails, just because, again, like I said, here you are risking your life to go halfway around the world for a better life. And you may have left family behind, and you're thinking about them all the way. And so that's what was these people's mindset. Another one, similar, Lucinda Darling in 1863 was on the Lander Trail, not too far from here. Her and a few of the ladies one evening were sitting around the campfire, and they were singing the song, "Do They Miss Me at Home?" So this is a song that was first written in 1854, but it became popular in 1852. The lady who had written the song, Carolyn Mason, who wrote the song, was a young lady that had gone off to school away from her family. And what the song is really about is, what are they doing at home? Are they playing cards? Are they singing? Are they laughing? Do they remember me? Do they miss me at home? That was kind of the theme of the song. It fits so well with both the immigrant experience as well as later in the Civil War. Some of the soldiers picked this up and would sing it. So I thought that was very poignant to, again, tell the mindset of these people. But then I want to go to a little more upbeat side of the entertainment. We're on South Piney Canyon. This is probably about a 7 or 8 mile stretch of the trail. At the end of the trail is what's called Snyder Basin. There, a supply fort was built by Lander in 1859 called Fort Piney or Fort Snyder, because John Snyder ran the little supply cabin. But it's where 2 rivers meet. South Piney meets another river, and it's just a little oasis. And so there was a group that decided they wanted to, it was such a nice place and they had a tough time coming up the canyon and they had mountains ahead of them, that they're just going to stay an extra day. And so he is with a group that shows up at the little cabin that's still there, and he runs in, and this is 1864, and they run into another wagon train, a larger wagon train that's already camped there. So they all camp together, and they all decide equally they're going to stay over for a day. And with this other group was a group of people that were strange. They were a little different than everybody else. The way they looked, the way they dressed, the way they talked. And he describes it as being really hard to pinpoint what's different. They just are different. Well, it turns out they were a theater troupe from Chicago. So they offered to do a theatrical presentation that evening because everybody was taking a break. So everybody got excited about this. There was probably 200 people. They took and circled wagons to create a pen for all the people to be in. They cut down logs for seating. They tore boards off of the cabin that was still there. Probably not much of it left by that time because other immigrants for 5 years had probably been tearing stuff off of it. They built a stage. They hung up sheets for curtains. They hung up blankets on the side to create dressing rooms and walls and blankets behind the stage. And they had gathered a bunch of wood, some of it off of the cabin, that they were going to burn for firelight because this was getting towards dark and they were going to go into dark. So that was their light, is a firelight. And so they had this nice entertainment. It included an orchestra that he called an orchestra of violin, flutes, and guitars. I guess that's what they had available to them. There was a short play that the troupe did about a young girl who is being betrothed to an older man that she doesn't want to marry, but her parents want her to do it for economic reasons. But she schemes with her sweetheart to put out information about this older man that embarrasses him. So some of his back practices, and I don't know what those are, but they sufficiently embarrass him that the young lady gets to marry her sweetheart, and that's what this play's about. So that they did that. Then there were acrobatic stunts, ventriloquism. He said the ventriloquist made people say things they did not intend. So they were probably making fun of a lot of the crowd when they did that. And they sung a lot of popular songs and popular instrumentals. And they ended the night with a group of old songs that finished it off. And it was just a spectacular event that everybody loved. Done a little research. This is in 1864, so the troupe was headed to the mining camps of Montana. They were going to go over into the Idaho, what's now Idaho, and then go north to the camps. And there are, if you get in the Montana Post newspapers of 1864, in the fall of 1864, there are minstrel troops that show up there and do activities. So I don't know, or do presentations. So I don't know which one of those people, which one of those groups. I've never been able to tie that. But one thing I can say is these were minstrel troops. And so the more ugly side of it is, at that time, blackface was very prominent in entertainment in the United States. And I'm almost certain this program would have had some blackface in it. And that was just a sign, sort of a sign of the times. But overall, it was one of these oases, this wonderful night in the middle of the wilderness where they know they have months behind them and months ahead of them to go.
For my limbs are growing cold, and thy presence seems most dearer, when thine arms they round me fold.